Some days I just feel completely inadequate as a parent. You're doing your best, but sometimes it just feels like your best just really isn't enough. Some days are so hard. Munchkin has autism. We know he does. Every professional who's ever met him says it, normally within about, in the case of one doctor, about 30 seconds of meeting him. We know. But I never knew how challenging it was going to be. I had another child who is going through a tricky time, a very high attention need time. Where with Smudge you kind of go, is there something there? Is there something going on? Or is it just that you're tuned into potential because of having Munchkin? I don't know. But yesterday was just one of those days. Munchkin is going through a screechy screaming phase at the moment. So he screams if he's upset. He screams if he's hurt. Sometimes he just screams because he just wants to scream. And nothing you can do fixes it. You can try ignoring it. You can try telling him off for it. You can try redirecting him. But it's also that thing of you don't know how much he actually understands. Does he actually understand why we don't want him to be screaming at us? And also, he's clearly frustrated about something, but when he gets himself in that point, he can't tell you. He's got no idea. By the time you've calmed him down, he can't remember why he was angry and frustrated. And it just can be so hard, so lonely, especially when you read all the news that's coming out at the moment, how Labour government want to scrap EHC plans because they cost too much money. Well, you know what is going to cost even more money? It's taking those away and then trying having children who need them, trying to find the right provision for them. Because we're lucky with Munchkin that, his school are able to support him. But you worry for the future. You worry for what is it going to look like? What is his future going to be? It's... And yeah, people go, well, you chose to have them. You chose to become a parent. And you're like, well, yeah, but no one goes into parenting wanting the hard times. It's going to be a part of it, but you go in, thinking it's going to be, things will get better as they get older. Things will get easier. But every time he kind of learns something and he gets a bit further on in his learning, there'll be a new challenge come up. At the moment it's obviously it's summer holidays, so we're way out of routine, which doesn't help. Plus he was ill the first week of summer holidays, so that clearly has not gone off to the best start so far. But yeah, and you think it's all very well for governments to go, oh, this needs to happen, but actually they've got no idea what it's like living the everyday life of it. When you're trying to do your best for your children, but every time you make some kind of progress, the system changes. There's more hoops to jump through. You know, he got accepted onto speech and language in May last year. That's like 15 months ago, and he's still not seen a speech and language therapist. If I had the money, it'd be great, because you could fix it all. You know, you could get your private diagnosis, you can get then your private speech and language. We just don't. So we're stuck fighting in a system, fighting for our child in a system that doesn't really give a damn about the children that it's meant to be helping. You know, with doctors who just laugh when they go, oh yeah, diagnosis is still years away, oh, it won't make a difference. You're like, well, it might make a difference when he starts asking questions, when he starts wondering why is he like that, and he realises that actually it is potentially going to be quite a big part of how he identifies. You know, and it's not going to stop him being our amazing, cheeky little boy. You know, and we have days when you just think, there you are, there's our munchkin. And then you have days where parenting just feels really, really lonely. Where our moments and milestones, celebrations look nothing like those of other children his age. You know, I read something recently on stories about autism, where they now refer to their milestones as inch stones, because actually they can be really tiny moments that for anyone else actually it doesn't really do anything. It's like, well, why would you be celebrating that? But actually it can be a really big thing. And I think that's the thing with Munchkin is, you know, the first time he turned around and he signed Daddy to say he wanted Daddy, or where he knows all of his numbers, he knows all his phonics, but he's only just learnt to tell you if he's hurt, and only then he has to really, really hurt himself to figure it out. You know, he has very little awareness of danger. He would just walk into the road. You know, he is limited on food. Luckily, he likes chicken. He eats a lot of chicken. You know, his protein levels, I'm sure, are fine. But trying to get fruit and veg other than peas or sweet corn into him is a challenge. You know, and when you see photos that the nursery had put on, and you've got all the other children and they're playing and they're interacting with each other, and then you see photos of him and he's by himself, or he's with his TA, and your heart breaks just a little bit every time. You know, just thinking, actually, what is his, you know, future going to be like? Because at the moment, his ability to communicate is limited. Just worries me, you know. But then you look at the really happy little person he is, and you just know that you got to keep fighting. Got to keep fighting to get him the help. And, you know, it took us 14 months to get his EHC plan granted. And I need to query part of it anyway, but because there was a sentence and I looked at it and went, no, not absolutely not, but hey. You know, and when they're saying, oh, like, I didn't realise how long term these things actually go, you know, where they asked me in the meeting with the head psych going, so what are your plans for him? What do you want him to be doing at the age of 7? I went, I don't know. When you have a child with additional needs, often you're looking day to day. Maybe towards the end of the week if we're having a good week. But now you're asking me 3+ years in advance. Where do I want him to be? What do I want him to be doing? What do I want his childhood to look like? You know, what are we going to count success as? And I just don't know. I hope that by then he'll have learnt to communicate even more. Like, he uses quite a lot of Makaton now when he wants to. He has got some verbal language, but most of it is learnt phrases. He can't have that sort of back and forth yet with you, where like if you said hello, he might say hello back, maybe. But he's also equally likely just to completely blank you and not register the fact that you're speaking to him. So it's like, well, I'd like him to be able to communicate a bit more, whatever way that looks. And they're like, oh, counting, and he should be doing maths and things like that, and sums, and it's like, well, yeah, he can kind of do that already. He might not be able to speak properly, or what we would count as properly for a 4-year-old, but he knows his maths. He'll lie there in bed and you hear him, and before he'd even learnt to form the proper words for, pronounce the words properly for the numbers, he was there, and you'd hear him just using the same sound for each number. He had a very specific sound for each number. He knew what he meant. And or you watch him on his tablet when he'd play a maths game, and it'd come up with a sum, and he'd just tap, absolute first. And the first few times you watch it, and you go, is that just a fluke? You've just happened to tap the right one. But the more you watched him, the more you're like, I don't think that's a fluke. When he then did it with shapes as well, and it would ask him, oh, what's the 5-sided shape? And he would just click the pentagon straight away. So it almost makes it harder though. The fact that he is so bright is then you want him to thrive. You want him to have the best future possible. Just want him to be happy. And in the meantime, we'll just do the best we can, day after day.